While the Nashville Predators collectively may not be a top team in the NHL this season, today we're going to tell you why three of the cornerstones of this roster deserve to be in the Locked On NHL's top 100.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this episode the way we kick off all of our episodes, and that is with a heartfelt shout out to our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio. And friends, I have a partner in crime.
That you do. I am Emma Lingan, and I'm an NHL reporter and host with the Hockey News.
Locked On is in the process of compiling their top 100 list for the 2025-2026 NHL season. Our network is ranking the best players in the league who are going to hit the ice this season. Today, we're going to lay out our very persuasive arguments for three Nashville Predators who absolutely will be on that list. We're also going to share our criteria for the top 100 and give you a sneak peek at our personal final rankings. All right, Emma, this show, along with this process, a little bit of angst about it. I just want to be clear that the top 100 is a whole thing. It's like 100 whole things, ranking the top 100 players. I found this as stressful as predicting games.
Yeah, it's very stressful. It's a lot because, like as we've said before, we don't like to be wrong. And there's a lot of subjectivity when it comes to ranking players. And so there's a lot of chance that you could be wrong, but also a lot of chance that you could be right.
Yeah. I love that the network, the Locked On NHL network, is doing this. And I think it's a unique perspective having Locked On do this, because what you have are experts who cover 32 different teams in depth. And I think that gives people a little bit of an advantage for putting together a bigger picture list, because there are probably a lot of people who don't follow, say, for instance, the Columbus Blue Jackets game in and game out. But Jay covers the Blue Jackets game in and game out. And through this process, Jay helps open up the door for like, hey, here are the players that maybe don't get national recognition, but are worth considering for this top 100 list. So I love that the network is doing this. And I love that there's a little bit of a different perspective, because sometimes when national programs and national publications do this, they're so used to covering big picture. And at Locked On here, you've got 32 teams with people really focused on their team that can kind of bring maybe some under the radar players to light. And for people like us who cover the Nashville Predators, who is kind of a middle market team and who, let's be honest, after last season, not at the top of everybody's mind, we have a unique perspective in saying, hey, wait, there may be some players that Toronto Maple Leafs fans don't hear much about, but who are worth considering. So I love the way that this is coming together through the Locked On NHL network.
Yeah, it is nice because, like, again, you don't get the full picture when you get the national perspective on things. While that perspective can be helpful, though, at times, because I think sometimes, fan bases and individual markets can get sort of stuck in their little bubble where they have their opinions on things, but it is helpful to see in the bigger picture. So I think that all those perspectives have value, and it is kind of nice to see something like this where you get the people who are actually, like you said, on the ground covering these teams day in and day out, and to get their perspective on it.
Yeah. So this is the process that this network is using to put together the top 100 list. And this list is going to come out right before the regular season. And when it does, Emma and I we're going to have some thoughts and feelings. We're going to share our thoughts and feelings when the list actually comes out. But how this list is being compiled by the NHL network here at Locked On, there is every show was asked to submit 3 to 6 players who that host believes should be considered in the top 100. Just one quick timeout. Emma, can you imagine having a team like Colorado who actually has to be like only 6? I can only pick 6 players to put on the top 100 list.
No, I can't imagine, actually.
No, I know. I was thinking like Dallas and Colorado. Like the hardest part is like, who do we submit and who do we leave off? That must be really difficult for you people.
Yeah. So we're so sad for you.
So sorry.
Really broken up about it.
That sounds terrible. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, moving on from that. So every team was, asked, or every network or every team representatives, say, hey, submit your 3 to 6 players who you believe are worth the top 100 list. From all of those input, a master list was created. And friends, this list was longer than my list for Santa Claus at Christmas. It was like unfurling the scroll. I'm telling you, it was. A master list was created and then sent back to each of the hosts of a Locked On NHL team podcast. And then each host ranks the players 1 to 100. Those lists are being resubmitted at this time, and they will be compiled into the eventual final top 100 NHL players for the 2025-26 season. And again, that's going to come out closer to the regular season. What is interesting about this, Emma, is that there was no set criteria from the NHL network. Like you have to weigh this and you have to weigh this and you have to weigh this. So every host really kind of got the opportunity to set their own criteria when it came to ranking these players. So I'm just curious, and we haven't actually talked about this. We each do a list and we haven't talked about this before, but I'm curious, what are the criteria that you use as you are looking at ranking players? What weighs heavily for you? What doesn't maybe weigh as much for you? How do you do it? Is it straight vibes?
I mean, there's a vibe factor. I think there's got to be a vibe factor. But yeah, no, it is not straight vibes. I think for me, I kind of think about it in terms of how I think about the Hart Trophy, for example, in the sense that it's supposed to be the player most valuable to his team. So, for example, looking at my Hart nominations, my Hart ballot this year, I think you can put like up to 6 players on there and you rank them, 1 through 6. I put David Pastrnak in mine, and he was the last one on the list. But still, I think, if you're talking about what he did for that Boston team, now the team as a whole, not good.
Not great.
But he, like the fact that he was still in, top 10, in some cases top 5 in like every offensive category this year, despite the fact that his team was terrible, I say that makes him the most valuable player to his team.
Yes.
So similar to, when choosing to put Connor Hellebuck on that list, not just the best goalie, but most valuable to his team. I don't think the Winnipeg Jets were going to be as dominant all season as they were if they didn't have him in net. Now playoffs, different story, but we've already talked about that. So that's kind of how I think about it when it comes to deciding who's the best player. I also, I take into account, I guess, term or tenure, like body of work, I guess is the better way to say it. Like if you've had one good season, it's more sustained success that I like to see. So I think it's kind of those two things. It's consistency, but then also just relative to the team that they play for.
Right. There's a lot to look at as you're measuring those things. And of course, you look at, I know for me, I was looking at points and I was looking at productions in different roles across the NHL. But I'm with you. Part of it for me was also trajectory. Where is this player? How, like you said, is this wow, look at this one season where they're busting out? That's exciting, but also body of work. Is this somebody who has shown this consistent type of play? And are they continuing to be on more of an upward trajectory as well. Some of that weighed in for me as well. But I love what you're saying about the Hart Trophy, because for me too, it's how critical is this player to their team? What does their team look like minus this player? And I think that sifts things a little bit easier when you think about it, like you said, in the Hart Trophy way. That's a little bit easier, but there is a lot to take into consideration: age, like you say, body of work, points in production, value to team. When I was really stuck, the kind of the final question for me, whether this is fair or not, was which player would I want on Nashville's roster to move the needle? You know, if I was kind of stuck, and there were times where it was like this player or this player next, this or that, you know, you're splitting hairs, and sometimes you come down to which one would I want on Nashville roster, or just straight vibes, friends. May not be
Don't knock
quantifiable,
the
but they're
vibes.
real.
Don't knock the vibes. I mean, the vibes are very real. So they're not everything, but there's something. There's something
They
there.
are. They are. Coming up, Emma and I are going to tell you the 3 Nashville Predators players who absolutely must be on the top 100 list. We're going to lay out our very well thought out arguments for where they should rank as well. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but the NFL season is almost here, friends. FanDuel is making sure you are ready with kickoff with a can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You're going to love using the FanDuel app because it fits however you like to bet, whether it is player props, or you like to build a same game parlay, or you even want to jump in live as the action unfolds. It's going to make every game more exciting, whether you are watching your favorite team or you're just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting fanduel.com to get started. That's fanduel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, Emma, when it came down to submitting the Nashville Predators that we were sure needed to be on the top 100 list, I don't know that you have to be Scooby-Doo driving the mystery machine to figure out who the 3 were that you and I were like, these guys have to be on the list. So, Emma, who did we submit? Who were the 3 players that we were like, don't even think about forgetting them guy in the little hat that left one of them off the Norris Trophy ballot?
Yeah. So on that note, Roman Josi.
Yes.
Roman Josi was number 1, and in no particular order yet. But number 1 was Roman Josi, number 2, Filip Forsberg, and number 3, Juuse Saros. You got 1 goalie, 1 defenseman, 1 forward. Pretty cut and dry, I think. I don't think, I know we seem to have a lot of unpopular takes on this show, but I don't think that should be one of them.
This
Maybe
should
I'll be
not be even lukewarm of a take, friends. This is as Vivian Ward says, it's a sure thing. This is a sure thing. And I think it's really interesting because you remember when Barry Trotz first took over as general manager, I remember him saying back when we were talking about the youth movement, how we have pivoted. But remember when he was talking about the youth movement, you have 3 pillars, 1 in each position, that you can build a franchise around, that can launch this franchise and help these young players become the next leaders. And that was Josi, Forsberg, and Saros. And no team had to do a goaltender, a defenseman, and a forward. That's just how it falls with the Nashville Predators. So let's start off with Roman Josi. And some people may wonder, he was injured this season. There's questions about his health coming back. I still feel like this is an absolute no-brainer. And we are not alone in thinking that. If you look at NHL Network, they released recently their top 20 defensemen in the league. Friends, Roman Josi at 36 years old, number 9. This is a guy you want on your team.
Yeah, I think, we talk about the Norris Trophy a lot, and how that kind of ends up going to it unofficially, but it ends up being the best offensive defenseman. And he is incredibly gifted offensively. But I say all the time, what makes Roman so special is that he's not just gifted offensively, he's
Yes.
also incredibly stable and sound in his own zone. And I think that he's a model of consistency on the back end. I mean, he gives you a safety blanket. He can play either side and he can play them both well. He can quarterback a power play. You notice when he's not there. Like you
Yeah.
notice when he's not on the ice, and not in a good way. And I think that he's one of those players that this is kind of where the vibe factor comes in a little bit. He has that ability that I don't know that there's one word for it, but it's like he's one of those players that has the gift of being able to just take over a game and like
Yes.
put a team on his back and say, I'm taking over. And I think that that's kind of where the vibe factor comes in a little bit. But
Mhm.
also, you just have to look at, if you want to look at straight numbers, I mean, when he's a defenseman and he's been leading the franchise in scoring for how many years? I mean,
Yes.
that's impressive. And I think that he's just, it's not just all about good vibes and, oh, we like him and he's the captain. I mean, he's like truly one of the most impactful players on the ice at any given time. And we saw that when he was not on the ice for a good
Yes.
portion of last season.
Yeah. And that's definitely something you take into account because even though Roman Josi, I think he played 58 or 68 games off the top of my head, I can't remember now, but didn't play the full season, you know that he was there and you knew when he was not there. And he is definitely the spine. He is the backbone. He is the heart of this team. And while people there, there's been talk in Nashville about like, is he the right style captain? I am telling you that he is the right person you want being the model for your franchise on ice and off ice. The thing that I love about Roman Josi as a defenseman is that you typically think of defensemen who are, standouts in the league. Sometimes you think of them as Mark Borowiecki said this one time, knuckle draggers, which makes me laugh. But you think of them as like brute physicality and all this stuff. And Roman Josi doesn't necessarily play that brute physicality game, but he doesn't have to because he is so skilled defensively. Yes, he's skilled offensively, but this is a guy on both sides of the puck who just his talent eliminates the need for him to be brute force on the ice. He's going to get the puck and he's going to do something with the puck without having to take out another person. And look, I'm here to say if you can do it without that, that's a skill in the NHL. So yeah, I think Roman Josi, this is a no-brainer. I think that this is so funny. You wonder if all of the other teams are as aware of Roman Josi, but I also have a moment of I wonder if Predators fans are as aware of Roman Josi because I think we are so used to seeing him do his thing that we forget that it's so exceptional. It's just so exceptional.
Yeah, I think it was Andrew Brunette in his first season. So not this last season, but the season before when Roman was a Norris finalist. But he was finished third in the voting. And we talked to Andrew Brunette about it, and he was the one who said, he's not the shiny new toy anymore.
Mhm.
You've got Quinn Hughes, you've got Cale Makar, you've got these young offensive dynamos of defensemen. And, with a guy like Hughes, for example, he's an undersized guy. So, of course, he's not going to bring that brute physicality as a defenseman, but he's also the Canucks' best player, like bar
Right.
none on either side of the puck. But again, it's his offensive ability that's almost kind of like the best defense is good offense in a
Right.
way.
Yeah.
Um, Well, for Roman, it's like you get a little bit of both. You get the really good defense. And again, not with the knuckle dragging and the hitting and all of that stuff. It's really just like the way he reads the ice. He knows where to be at what time. He knows how to position himself super well. He's really, really solid. And like I said earlier, a model of consistency. And again, he 1000% makes this team better
Oh, yeah.
when he's on the ice. So I that one is an easy one for me.
Yep. Filip Forsberg, we are talking about the franchise record holder for goals, game-winning goals, power play goals, hat tricks. Of course, Filip Forsberg is going to make this list, but it's not just what Filip Forsberg does in comparison to his teammates with the Nashville Predators. It is where Filip Forsberg plays and his level of skill compared to the entire NHL. And I feel really strongly about this one, Emma, for a couple of reasons. We were talking about Roman Josi, so high skilled that he doesn't have to play that physical game. Filip Forsberg just mystifies me. The more that I watch him, even in practices, the more that I am trying to piece together exactly who he is. Because here is what we all know. Filip Forsberg is ridiculously talented. Skill level is off the chain. But what I have learned watching him is that dude is built like a brick poop house. He is freakishly strong and sneakily physical. And that is one aspect of Filip Forsberg's game that I have really come to appreciate the closer that I watch him. It's easy to be dazzled by his skill because it is dazzling. But the underrated part of Forsberg's game is that he is just a really tough guy to play against. And I love that. I love that for Phil.
He really is kind of like a bit of a unicorn in the like he is a true power forward, I think, but he's
Yeah.
also so skilled. And normally, again, when you think power forward, you don't think of like the silky mitts and
Yes.
just the really high skill, the refined stick work and things like that. But he really does have it all. And I think that unfortunately, and this is gonna, open up a whole other can of worms that we've gotten into quite a bit already on the show, so we don't need to rehash it. But I think that there's always a conversation about like the elite forwards in this league. And you have the obvious names at the top. But Filip Forsberg never really makes it into that conversation. And I think part of that is like what we were talking about earlier. If you don't see what he does on a day-to-day basis, then, you're not as familiar with his work and you don't know exactly what he can do. But I think part of it too is the fact that it's the team he plays for.
Yeah.
And I think that there just hasn't been the right, not to say that he's never played with skilled players before. That's not at all what I'm saying. But I think that if last year has taught us anything, you need to have the right combination of skill, of fit, of vibes. Like really,
Yeah.
it's all of it. You need to have the right combination of everything. And I think that I'm not saying that 1000% yes, Filip Forsberg is an elite forward, but I think he could be in the conversation if
Yes.
surrounded with the right pieces. I
Yeah.
think that it would not be a stretch to say that because we've seen him, for so long. He had that elite finishing ability. He was, the best goal scorer. It was the scoring that was his thing. But then, first year under Andrew Brunette as well, Phil became a really skilled puck distributor too. Not became. I think he's always had that facet of his game, but I think he sort of refined it. Um, and he was able to, when he was playing on that line with Gus Nyquist and Ryan
Oh, yeah.
O'Reilly, those guys, especially like with O'Reilly in front of the net all the time, you don't need Forsberg to be scoring all the time. You need him to be getting the puck to the guy who's in front of the net. And so he was able to do that extremely effectively as well. So I think he's very well rounded. I think that and I mean, I know just from the time I've spent with him, I mean, he actively works on his skating, on
Yes.
getting faster, on being more fluid and things like that. So he is, I think he can be considered among like one of the great forwards in the NHL right now, but he's maybe been held back by circumstances.
Yeah. I think there is something to that conversation. I do. Coming up, we're going to talk about Juuse Saros. While he may have had one of the worst seasons of his whole career last season, we have zero concerns that he shouldn't be on the top 100 list. We're going to lay out our reasons why Juuse Saros better be ranked and ranked well coming up. Before we dive back into our talk about the top 100, we do have an important request for you. Locked On wants to hear from our listeners. We have put together a survey to learn more from our listeners and to make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and to answer some questions about our advertising. To participate in the survey, you can go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. And everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in our show notes. All right, Emma, one thing I want to just tag on to what you said about Filip Forsberg. I could not agree more. And the way I think about it is this. If Filip Forsberg played for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I don't think there would be a huge debate about whether he was elite. And I don't mean that as his teammates would be so much better than Nashville. I think there's maybe an element here or there of that, but I mean straight exposure. I think if Filip Forsberg had the exposure, I think more people could appreciate how talented, high skill he is. But just like you said, he is so well-rounded. His game is so well-rounded. So I'm with you. I'm like, if you all could just take a moment and watch Filip Forsberg, please. We'd like to show you something.
I think there's two fan bases in the NHL who fully appreciate Filip Forsberg. And number one is Nashville. Number two is Washington. That's the team that traded him to Nashville. And every year I see this comes up, it's some Washington fans on social media just talking about this was the worst trade in the history of trades. And it's like, well, at least someone sees it and appreciates it. But yeah.
We thank you for your time and we thank you for the deal, Washington. Sorry about your luck. Yeah. Yep. I love that. Of course, we have to talk about Juuse Saros. And I know what a lot of people will say. Oh, Juuse Saros coming off of the worst season and he is too old and the Predators should never have signed him to this contract. Well, they did, and he isn't, and he is. Juuse Saros, of course, been a Vezina finalist. I think last season skews perspective on Saros, and there's a lot that we've talked about that goes into why the season looked like it did for Juuse Saros. Some of that was play in front of him. I think there were some aspects for him that he needed to tweak and to work on. But the bottom line is when you were talking about quality, consistent goaltending, a goaltender who is going to win you games, Juuse Saros is towards the very top of that list across the board in the NHL.
Yeah, and I think he's another one that maybe doesn't get appreciated because even when you look at like 2 seasons ago, or I guess now maybe 3 seasons ago, the 22-23 season when everyone got injured or traded and it was all the young kids in the second half and then Saros. And he was keeping them in games. If you'll recall, that team, even without Forsberg, without Josi, without Ekholm, without any of those guys, that team was in play for a playoff spot up until like 2 games left in the season.
And they had no business being there.
No business. They had no business being close to that at all. Saros was the reason. Saros kept them in those games. And I think that, the goaltending can only do so much. And I think it's an important thing that you pointed out a minute ago about of course he shares some blame. I'm not saying that last season was his worst season, but it's not his fault and he's never done anything wrong ever. Like, of course he should take some accountability for that. At the end of the day, you're paid to play a position in the NHL. You got to be able to adapt and do it well. And so I get it. I'm not saying be nice to him. Like, he doesn't deserve any of the blame. But what I am saying is that I do think you see it, and it's not specific to him. You see it all the time where goaltenders can get exposed. And I don't mean exposed like, oh, he's a fraud, he's actually really bad. I think it's like, oh, see, it actually matters who is playing in front of him. I mean, look at last year, for example, another, one that I think is kind of a consensus. Everyone would agree, one of the best goaltenders in the league, Igor Shesterkin. You see what
Yes.
happens when the defense in front of him gets decimated, and he struggled by his standards last year. He struggled. And so, and I mean, looking at the Rangers defense this year, he's probably going to struggle some more. But I think that that's, you have to take that into account. You can't look at these things in a vacuum.
Yeah.
You have to take it into account, because when looking at how the defense is playing in front of you, first of all, we go back to the top defensive pairing for the Nashville Predators at the end of last season was a guy who just got there and a guy who should be in the AHL, with no disrespect to Nick Blankenburg. But
Right.
like, come on now. Nick Blankenburg is not a top pairing defenseman. And Brady Shea is, but he was so out of his depth. I mean, he's still trying to find the catch up. And it was like there were so many moving parts. I mean, there are guys that do you remember Jordan Osterley? Kind of forgot he existed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Jordan, but I kind of forgot. Andreas Englund, same thing. I mean, the defense was a revolving door of
It's nice to meet you.
average. It was a revolving door ranging from like average to aggressively mediocre. And I think that needs to be taken into account when you're talking about the play of your goaltender. And again, it's not to say that, oh, he got exposed, he's actually really bad, because just like when I say goalies can only do so much, defense can only do so much too. A defense isn't going to make a goalie look amazing when he's actually terrible. There's going to be a little bit of give and take there, but it's not going to be that black and white. So again, I'm still not worried. We talk about consistency, body of work. I am not even a little bit worried about Saros.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was on the Locked On NHL Game Time show. They're going around and talking to each of the teams. And so I hopped on for Locked On Predators, and they were like, how concerned are you about Saros? Like, what's he going to do to get his mojo back? And I'm like, first of all, he's going to wear his double-breasted suit and be fine. But the other thing that makes me feel really good about Saros is he is good at a reset. And he played in the World Championships after the season ended. And Guy was incredible. Now, granted, playing with a different team and all that kind of stuff. Dude was amazing in that World Championships in net. And I think sometimes, especially for goaltenders, it is so much mental. You need that palate cleanse. And I feel like Saros got a really good one at World Championships. The other way that you measure a goaltender is not stats. Ask players who have to play against him. And if you ask players around the league, Juuse Saros can be a thorn in their side. I love, there's an article that just came out talking about Saros likely going to be a net for the Olympics, friends. And they talked to Ellie Tolvanen, who is probably also going to be on the Olympic team. And Tolvanen's like, look, I have played with him and I have played against him. And I really, really would rather play with him, because he is so hard to score against. He's so hard to score on.
Yeah. And, as we often talk about, I mean, the best, you can't talk about Juuse Saros without mentioning at least 17 times that he is undersized. But that seems to be, what all the national broadcasts and national media have to talk about. But I mean, I remember this is when I worked for the team. I was with him at All-Star Week in
Mhm.
Florida. And I was talking to a bunch of players because I was doing a story on what's it like to, how do you score against this guy? And I was talking to players like not just random guys. I mean, I was talking to Nathan McKinnon, and I remember McKinnon saying he is so hard to read because he's so explosive, because he
Yes.
has to be, because
Mhm.
he's not large, he's not going to take up the net. So it's like all of a sudden he'll be over here and then boom, he's on the other side of the ice, and it's like you have no idea, but he just explodes, and you can't anticipate it. So it's he's very sneaky, he's shifty, which I think,
Mhm.
again, you have to be when you're that size. But I think that size isn't everything when it
Yep.
comes to a goalie. But again, I don't think it's just like, oh, he's small, but he's scrappy. I think no, he's actually incredibly skilled
Yes.
in the way he reads the game.
Yeah. I always go back to how impressed should I be with UC Saros? I go back to this play 2 seasons ago, I believe, and there was just this ridiculous onslaught at the net. And at the end, there was like 3 defensemen on the ground and UC Saros there. And Ryan McDonough was on the ground and got up and looked at Saros and he goes, "You saved that?" Just absolutely. Ryan McDonough was like, "How did you save that?" And I'm thinking, Prince Ryan McDonough has played with a really good goaltender before. And for him to look
Yes.
at Saros just incredulous, "How did you save that?" Like, I'm like, that's how good UC Saros is. The
Yep.
players in the league know it. Emma, when you look at these 3 players, where do you expect them to fall? Just ballpark for me. Are they gonna be 1 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100-ish?
Man, I think so. It's hard because it's like I know where I think they should be, but
Right.
where will
Where's
they
everyone
be?
gonna rank them? Yeah.
I think of the 3, the one who has the best chance of being in the top 25 is and should be Roman Josi.
Yes.
I still think he is, underrated, yes, but I still think he is pretty widely regarded as at least a top 10 defenseman in the league. Now I know we're obviously talking about players in general, and that's what makes this so hard as well, is like how do you compare a goalie and a forward, and how do you put them all, how
Right.
do you rank them all on the same list? But I think Yossi has the best chance of being in the top 25.
Mhm.
Um, and I think Forsberg, top 50, top
Yeah.
75,
Yeah.
maybe. And probably same for Saros. Maybe in the top 75,
Yeah.
maybe later. I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see where these rankings fall. And of course, when they come out, Emma and I are going to break it all down for you. Before we wrap up this discussion, Emma, I'm going to put us both on the hot seat because we love to be uncomfortable publicly. We asked
Surfing.
the Locked On Predators insiders, who's your number one? And across the board, our insiders said Connor McDavid, number one player in the league. Who was your number one and why?
So
It's not as easy as you think, people.
I did end up saying McDavid. I would
Mhm.
say McDavid. However, it was not easy.
Yeah.
McDavid. Next question. Like there was a lot of debate,
Yeah.
internal debate on that. And I think that there are a lot of names it could have been, and there are names that I wouldn't have necessarily disagreed or been angry with, that
Mhm.
if you said this player's the best player in the league. But hey, I did ultimately have to go with McDavid, but I don't think it's as cut and dry as a lot of people think. There's a lot
Yeah.
of nuance there.
I went back and forth on this, and I agree with you. I think across the board, people feel like, well, of course it's Connor McDavid. Honestly, I put him 2 and I put McKinnon 1. And I know people will disagree with that. I just feel like, yes, Colorado is a ridiculously talented team. We joked about it earlier, but it's just not that funny when you're in the Central Division. It's just not that funny. They're so good.
We're not ready to laugh yet.
We're not. Yeah, it's the uncomfortable laugh. It's not a ha ha.
Yeah.
But I think if you extract Nathan MacKinnon from that team, I think a number of other players, and I think that team overall is significantly less competitive. And you could make the same argument. I understand how you could make the same argument for McDavid and the Oilers as well. But just I think it's tricky. I think there is a lot of talent in the NHL. We're living in it's a good time to be a hockey fan, you all. There's some amazing players, and there are some amazing ones on the horizon, as well. One of them's playing in a Penn State uniform. Penn State, by the way, total aside, I know this is not Locked On Nittany Lions, but Penn State announced this weekend they are having an outdoor game at Beaver Stadium. January 31st, friends.
That's going to be awesome. That's going to be a great environment.
Fun vibe. Yeah, they'll probably do a whiteout. I know what I'm asking for Christmas, but anyway, that's a podcast for another day for my husband.
Yes.
So let us know what you all think. Do you agree that Josi, Forsberg, and Saros should make the top 100? Are there other players that you think are on the Predators roster that should be a sure thing as well? Because we wrestled with that too. Let us know in the comments, and let us know who's your number one and why. I know it sounds easy, but there's a lot of pressure when you're looking at a list. So, but yeah, we're interested to hear what you have to say. You can let us know in the comment section of this video. You can also let us know on social media. You can find the podcast at LO_Predators. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Emma, before we log off on this Tuesday, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
Yes, you can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Friends, that's going to do it for today's episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. We thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We're going to be back later this week with an all new episode. We'll see you then.